Hey guys, and welcome to the worst matchup in the game, which has always been, in my opinion, Dwarfs versus Wood Elves. It's so tough from the Wood Elf perspective, so we're going to be looking to see if the new DLC has changed anything, and if the Wood Elves now have a few more strings to their bow they can pick apart the Dwarfs with. Once again, going to be up against Samurai Warrior, True Champ, and a really lovely guy. So let's go through our build and see how we can destroy him and his hopes and dreams. In the front lines, we do have some Longbeards mixed in with Warriors of Dragonfire Pass. Longbeards have been chevroned up as well to make a thick, meaty, doughy front line. Of course, remember guys, the mass has changed on a lot of these units. In particular, I think Dwarfs will be rather tanky, hopefully, into the future. We have some miners in a secondary line with blasting charges dotted all the way along, and then a ton of crossbow fire is going to be coming in. We have double Bugman Rangers, as well as 2 units of Quarrelers. You don't really need Thunderers too much up against, what else? In my experience, at least, I think the crossbowmen can kind of, do the damage needed at least. And if you really want to take down a big tree or something, you can always shoot it with a cannon. Speaking of cannons, we do have an organ gun as well as a cannon as well in this central pocket, protected by 2 units of Slayers, one of which is the Dragonback Slayers, the Regiment of Renowned. And in the middle here, we have the mighty Grombrindle, the White Dwarf, who is new and improved. I haven't gone through all his stats to see what's improved there, but if you want to pause it, you can have a little look as we have a stat card up on the left. But he has a new ability, or a new kind of factor to him, I suppose, which is he is now unbreakable. So all those people who are wondering and complaining about Grombrindle running away from a meager dragon and the like, he's not going to be doing that anymore. He's an unbreakable, angry white dwarf. Grombrindle has no fear has also been changed. It no longer affects the entire battle, but instead an area effect around him, and a rather large one at that, 55 meters, giving unbreakable and 24 melee defense. So that's going to be it for our build. For my opponent here, we do have a double Glade Rise with spears hiding on the edge of the map there. They're going to be a nice cheap new tool to try and break into that doughy back line. Over on this flank, we do have double Waystalk with arrows of Kernos, attempting to hunt down artillery pieces as well as some Deepwood Scouts. And in the main battle line, we have a mixture of Eternal Guard dotted along and Wildwood Rangers. If they can survive the archer fire on the way in, their armor piercing should allow them to carve their way through dwarves quite nicely. We also have the Enigmas here of Gairan, is what I'm going to go for. Probably butchered that pronunciation, so apologies. Which are the Regiment of Renowned Zotes. Now, these guys have magic damage, so you wouldn't think they'd be the best up against Dwarfs, despite the fact they have decent AP and the like, but they also come with Dampen, which is a minus 22% magic resistance, so I think that certainly gives them a little bit more sway in this matchup. Their armor piercing, of course, you don't need the bonus versus large, but the Regiment Renowned come with Regrowth as well as Flesh to Stone, and we have a regular unit as well coming in with Earthblood and Flesh to Stone. For leader, we do have Drycha as well, so let's have a little look at this badass lady. I've already covered her, and I'm sure you've seen a lot of videos on her recently anyway, but coming by the Rouse of Wrath, we have the Enfeebling Foe, and of course the Fanatical Resolve, which I think is a really nice buff all round. She does, however, do magic damage, which would be a little bit of a problem. So without further ado, let's get this battle underway. So of course, naturally, as Dwarfs, we are going to be taking a rather defensive approach here, trying to shoot in with our cannons and organ guns, and of course, we're going to focus down the Zotes, realising they're probably the biggest threat to this build. That Flesh to Stone as well should boost up their relatively, average armor of 60 when the crossbow fire does indeed start to emerge. Luckily for me, these Glade Rise weren't actually hidden in the tree, so we are going to wheel around our organ gun in a second and start unloading some fire. The Waystalker's being a little pesky here, pushing forward, starting to try to focus down the cannon where possible. And the Zotes taking not too much damage here. The Dwarven Artillery needs to get their eye in just a little bit. But the organ gun is going to swing around and start unleashing a few shots here into the Glade Riders with spears, picking off a few models. They don't have too many places to escape to either, simply going to be pulling back. But I just wanted to send a warning shot, let them know I know what's up before turning back to engage with the more scary units on the front lines here. Drycha has popped forwards as well, leading the charge, maybe trying to bait out some blasting charges and the focus of the Quarrelers and the like, so we're not going to worry too much about her. Minus the blasting charges, just trying to push these Waystalkers and Deepwood Scouts away from the artillery pieces, but looks like the cannon is just down to 1 cannon piece so far. Has managed to do some decent damage on the Enigmas, but an Earthblood and Flesh of Stone is going to keep them alive and healthy as they charge into battle at this point, and this is where the Thunder is certainly going to strike, and it's going to be very important for the Wood Elves to break through the formation quickly. Warriors of Dragonfire Pass coming with that fire damage, their flaming axes, trying to go toe-to-toe with the Enigmas. Flesh of Stone, though, is going to be healing them up or keeping them relatively strong, and of course they have that regrowth to heal them up if needs be. And they're trying to also bait out the blasting charges to a relative success here. It looks like the Glade Riders are going to dart into the back lines. Only one unit of Slayers has been left back for protection, because the Dragonbacks have, of course, had to answer the call to battle the Zoats. But you can see the crossbow fire doing pretty good damage all round, and Longbeards are still relatively sturdy. Blasting charges coming in and doing some pretty nice damage to those Wildwood Rangers. In the front line, we do have the White Dwarf going toe-to-toe with the Enigmas here. A flash bomb has been popped, but so has Flesh of Stone and a regrowth. But the White Dwarf is currently just chilling on the corpse of a recently slain foe, and just vibing at the moment, wiggling around a bit, but he needs to get in there and start making them pay. Looks like Eternal Guard have managed to slowly move through the gaps in my front line, and so have the Glade Riders. Fortunately for my opponent, they went after the cannon first, which had already really been shut down, before bouncing over to the organ gun. The Slayers should be able to drag these pointy-eared princelings from their horses with relative effectiveness. And yeah, you can see the Glade Riders are going to get dragged down, of course, by the Slayers. Bugman Rangers have done some pretty fantastic damage, forcing back the Wildwood Rangers, and so many of the Wood Elf units are in retreat here over on the left-hand side. We are still holding. You can see Longbeards can keep Drycha busy all day. They're not too fast, as Miners go toe-to-toe with Eternal Guard, and because of blasting charges, they're doing relatively well as well. We have shattered off some Glade Riders who are fleeing for the hills at this point, and Bugman Rangers continue to unleash salvo after salvo of arrow into the Wildwood Rangers, doing some pretty decent damage. Looks like the Enigmas are finally done for at this point. Grombrindle up to only 3 kills, but I'm sure all 3 of them have been mighty beasts indeed. And with the Dragonback Slayers in combat and the vicinity of him, they should be doing pretty damn good. Looks like we are going to see a fat pendulum coming down on the Bugmans. We noticed it a little too late, so we are going to waddle forward after taking the hit. But Grombrindle has no fear, so all these troops getting that buff to their melee defense is quite nice as well. We see a summon of Dryads coming down, popped on top of the Bugman Rangers, and I was speaking to my opponent after this, and he actually forgot about the summons, which maybe could have turned the tide a little bit if he had used them a bit earlier to pressure the Bugman Rangers and allow the Zoats to really clear out that front line. Arrows of Kronos are darting in as well, trying to focus down Dragonback Slayers, it would seem, and go along the flanks here of these Miners, doing some pretty good damage all round. Drycha is, though, of course, on the run. Grombrindle is a far better combatant, and I mean, she's a tree, he has an axe. It's kind of a love story from hell for Drycha's point of view. So Grombrindle is probably going to give up the chase in just a second. The Bugman Rangers still fantastic in this matchup, in my opinion. Of course, they do have that lovely liquid fortification to give them the regen. Looks like a pendulum does come down, but the Bugmans were already running for the hills. And we're kind of just stabilising all our forces. We have one organ gun still active. We're just going to be launching some shots into targets where possible, and kind of trying to clear out the last remnants of this Wood Elf force. But overall, it's still a very, very, very tough matchup for the Wood Elves, and it looks like the Dowie may be able to seal victory here. We do have Eternal Guard forcing off Bugmans. Drycha trying to come back to the fray as well. Grombrindle, though, is eyeing her up at this point, and is going to be moving in. Let's see if he manages to catch her this time. He does drop a smoke bomb down, so she's not going to be able to retreat very easily, and he's going to start carving up that tree very, very quickly. And it looks like that is indeed going to be enough to break her, and that is game to the forces of the mighty Dowie in a close victory. So we're very well played to Samurai Warrior, a true champ, because I wanted to test this match out. So a true champ for going in a really ridiculously hard matchup, in my opinion, and still giving it a very good go as well. Samurai Warrior, fantastic content creator, so any of those Italian speakers out there, or people trying to learn Italian, there will be a link to his channel in the description down below. So is this matchup still the horrid matchup that it always has been? The answer's probably yes. Now, I think there are a few more tools. We can see we do indeed have the Zoats, but they didn't manage to get that much value, as they still take a rather long time to grind down Longbeards and the like, and they were heavily pressured from the Bugman Rangers. I think with the summons in the back, maybe they could have done a bit better. But still, they also get swarmed by Slayers and the like. Wildwood Rangers a little bit too expensive for what they do as well. I do like the pick here of the Way Stalkers. Got some pretty good value on both of them, taking out the cannons and the like. But yeah, all the Dwarf stuff just trades very effectively in this matchup if you look at the kills and damage dealt. And the White Dwarf didn't have to do too much in the end, but I do like his new improved self as well. So yes, I think this is still probably the worst matchup in the game. I think a few of the new tools certainly help in the form of the Glade Riders in particular, who are quite cheap and can get into the back line quickly, and the Zoats. And there is something I'm going to test out quickly now with you. So I think there is one more unit which perhaps can be used rather effectively in this battle. So if we go to custom battle here, and pop ourselves onto the Wood Elves. It doesn't really matter which Wood Elf we go. Let's just choose a Brave Little Horse or a Stag because it looks cooler with none of his abilities. There we go. And the other unit I'm thinking that could be quite good here is surprisingly the Blade Singers. So they are rather expensive and squishy, so you would have to avoid blasting charges. You need to bring them with a Branch Wraith as well. The reason you want to bring the Branch Wraith is for this item here, the other Trickster's Shard, minus 22% magic resistance, which will negate the Dwarf's power, of course, in battle. So let's go to the Mighty Dwarf faction here. Let's give them a just cheap, naked, basic Lord. Bam, bam. And yeah, none of those items. And let's give unit of Longbeards, which is obviously much cheaper though. And let's go a unit of Ironbreakers as well. So they are going to get some blast and charges. Be interesting to see. And they are the same costs as the Blade Singers. So let's hop in here and have a little look how these ladies do. The Blade Singers are an interesting unit. I think they're going to be very, very good against Norska in particular because they can switch that less AP damage and turn them into real lawnmowers. They'll be able to cut through Berserkers, Marauders, Skin Wolves, and the like very quickly. So I think that's one matchup they would be very good in, as well as Greenskins. But let's see if my little theory can indeed work here. So let's just chuck all these guys in, take him off fire at will, and just advance on the Dowie formations. This is something I've been meaning to test for a while. Let's fast forward as we do plot along. We currently want to stay relatively close to you, but let's get in here. Hopefully the battle won't spread too far, so the Branch Wraith's ability will come into action. So you can see on the blast and charge they take quite a lot of damage, but overall they do tend to chew through Longbeards very, very quickly here. Let's just make sure the Branch Wraith's effects are indeed in range of everyone, which is there. So yeah, both of these units are in range, and they carve through Longbeards scary fast here, down to about a third health without not losing too many models themselves at all. In fact, only losing 2 models there, which is pretty crazy stuff. However, the Ironbreakers are holding a little bit better. Yeah, Longbeards getting absolutely destroyed, which of course will also happen to Dwarf Warriors, Miners, and the like. So the Blade Singers, if you can get them into combat, can do a horrific amount of damage to Dowie units. Now, the Longbeards trading a little bit more even. Of course, they got one of their blast and charge salvos in, but not the second one. And it still looks like the Blade Singers have a decent chance of winning this. And for those who don't know, you can activate this effect, Whirl and Death, which gives them less armor piercing, but better base weapon damage. Makes them pretty deadly combatants indeed up against light infantry. And that's an effect they've done to all War Dancers, so the War Dancers' abilities can now be turned on and off, rather than kind of being there for a limited time. Which is something I think is really good for the spears in general, because they can get to combat a lot easier. But yeah, Blade Singers are trading relatively effectively here, and I think they are indeed going to be able to beat the Iron Breakers, so perhaps they are an answer combined with the Branch Wraith, or maybe even the Zotes to give that dampen effect onto the Iron Breakers. They can carve through them, beating a unit of the same points cost. But again, incredibly squishy, coming with only 15 armor, as well as a 20% physical resistance, which helps out a little bit. But yeah, one-on-one, Blade Singers do indeed beat Ironbreakers with the support of the Branch Wraith debuff, of course. So maybe that is the answer. I'll have to do some more testing. I'm sure I'll be able to bring some of these more battles to you relatively soon. And guys, hope you did enjoy. If you did, feel free to give the video a big old thumbs up and subscribe for more Total War Warhammer content. And leave comments down below of what new DLC stuff you would like to see. Till next time, guys, peace, and as always, stay awesome.